Hello everyone. This is a brief video overview for one of the assignments that you'll do during the first week. If you recall from the 1302 course overview video, we talked a little bit about the first paper, or the basis of the first paper, which is the play Doubt by John Patrick Shanley. This is a play that I will provide you, and there's a plain copy of the play, and then there's a play inside of this hypothesis assignment. Hypothesis is a social annotation tool where students can come in and annotate a text, either by themselves or in small groups or in a whole class, depending on how a professor sets that up. Our first read through of the Doubt play will be an individual annotation, so you're in a quote group of one, so nobody can see your annotations except for you and me on this first one, and this will give you an opportunity to process the play on your own without being influenced by anybody else's thoughts just yet. Our other layers of the annotation assignment in the coming weeks will be small groups. So once we've read it all and kind of formulated our opinions on our own, then we'll be able to talk about it together in small groups. But let me show you some of the ropes in terms of how to access and how to participate. The first time that you click into the link, you'll see this screen pop up, but there'll also be a little pop-up that says authorize, and you'll just click OK, and then you're in. And that's the only time it will happen, is the first time that you click in. Before you do any hypothesis assignment, though, it's really important that you look at the instructions for that right above. I do have to put the instructions in a PDF file because inside the assignment itself, there's the text, and then there are the little annotation boxes to the right, so there's really no room for me to put a full set of instructions inside the link like we would see in a normal assignment, so they're always going to be right above. It's important that you not just click on it and glance at it, but that you read the whole thing. You can make it full screen, you can print it out, and so on. Let me scroll down a little bit and show you a couple of things. You can read it yourself, but it's very step by step. It's explaining that when you do post, you need to post to your name, and if you download the file, it won't be fuzzy like this. It'll be clear. I guess I can go ahead and download that to demonstrate that, so let me just open it in its own tab. There we go. So nice and clear. There we go. And so notice that when you're in a group of one, you'll post to your name. And these are the tag types. So the first time that we read through the assignment, we're really focusing on your initial annotations. This is a first read through. You're going to be focusing on passages and dialogues or scenes that somehow seem significant or that lead you to have some kind of impression or thought. These should be like very organic and natural. Again, you're not trying to impress anybody, but you are trying to think through things. So you want to avoid being overly brief. You don't want to be long just to be long, but you're kind of thinking through things. So allow yourself that space to do that. And that's what's really kind of important. You're really going to want to go through the whole play one time, doing these initial annotations, and you'll tag those with an IA, which stands for initial annotations. And the point of that is to kind of figure out what you think and to also settle on an opinion about whether or not you think Father Flynn is guilty of having brought about an inappropriate relationship with a 12-year-old boy, or whether he is innocent. On the second read through, you're going to want to develop a working thesis for the paper. It's going to be really simple. Father Flynn is guilty or Father Flynn is innocent for this purpose. I mean, we'll make it sound better for the paper, but that's all you have to figure out, kind of on the first read through. And then on the second read through, I want you to find a piece of evidence, something in there that's kind of concrete, that is part of what leads you to believe that Father Flynn is guilty or innocent. And you're going to anchor your declaration of the thesis to that something specific, and you're going to explain why that leads you to that. And I've got examples of each tag type for this assignment. On the second read through, you're also, so basically the first read through is just all IA annotations, and once you've done that, you're going to go back through and read it a second time through the lens of what you believe to be true. Is he guilty or is he innocent? And then you're going to analyze the evidence through the lens of your belief or your opinion. So when you're analyzing evidence, now you're going to be analyzing it from the vantage point of somebody who has a definitive opinion that Father Flynn is either guilty or innocent. And notice here that, I've got, this is definitely read through too. At some point in the first read through, hopefully you will settle on an opinion, and it doesn't mean you can't change your mind later, but I promise you there's plenty of evidence either way. There's literally not a correct answer. It comes down to, how you're reading the play, what kind of assumptions and experiences you're bringing to the table with you when you read this. All of those things play an impact. It also will probably be influenced by whether or not you have seen the movie first or after the fact. Sometimes that sways people's opinions as well. You'll also do a tiny bit of exploring counter arguments in the second read through, and then toward the end, when you're wrapping things up, you'll do a reflective analysis tag. But again, you can go through and read those. Now, this is what I really want to highlight, and let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. This is why I recommend that you print this out. You don't have to, obviously, but you do need to refer to these, and yours should emulate what you see here. Again, not to impress, not because, it had to have to be anything of a certain length, but we don't want to have cursory annotations. We don't want to have annotations that don't accomplish anything. This is your opportunity to really do a close reading, a close couple of readings this first week to figure out what you think and to start processing the play. Let me back up here to the analyzing the evidence. You're really going to want to highlight very specific things and explain how those pieces of evidence strengthen your thesis and contribute to your overall argument. If you're able to develop a topic sentence during this time, you can actually label those as well, and then you're already getting some of the work done for what you need to do later. But for each one of these, I have examples, and aside from the first one, which is initial annotation, which I haven't formed an opinion one way or the other there. I'm just kind of like thinking through something. I have double examples, one for if I thought he was guilty over here, and one for innocent, because I don't want any of these examples to influence anybody to think one way or the other. So I take two different things to show an example for guilty and an example for innocent. Now, once you're doing your second read through, though, you're only going to do it from one vantage point because you can only have one thesis. The purpose of me having two here is just so that I'm not influencing your judgment one way or the other. So when you go through, and if you think he's innocent, then all of your AE annotations are going to be in alignment. You're going to be interpreting things in light of the fact that he is innocent. It really is important that you do read the examples, though, so you kind of have a handle of what you're doing on those. And I don't want you to get bogged down. Like on the very first time that you're annotating, let me bounce over here. You're going to come in and maybe you annotate something here in the preface before the play. So I'm just going to highlight something, random here, but don't you do anything random, please. And you're only going to highlight the part that really is vital to, whatever your comment is. Avoid, highlighting huge chunks of text. You really want to focus on a line, an image. If it's a whole section, try to minimize so you're not just like kind of coloring the page. You really want to isolate the things that you're talking about. And you're going to click on the double quotes right there, and then it brings up your little box, and then this is where you type, and it gets as big as you want. You can make things bold, italics, you can put quotes around things, you can add links. You really don't need to add links to anything right now because we're not doing any outside research. And as you saw in the GIF that I put up there, you can add GIFs, images, and videos. And those multimedia features are going to come in handy, maybe for some of our other readings, but for this one, you probably won't need those. If you do find any images, or if you want to do anything to give your annotation some visual pop or flair, then you can. It certainly, kind of draws the eye, and it breaks up the monotony of just text on a page. But since you're in here by yourself, you're not really trying to draw anybody necessarily to your annotations. This is for you to process the text. But once you do type whatever you're going to type here, you're going to post to your name, and then it's going to post there. So you'll see right now I have put everybody in a group of 1. So right now, Teresa, I'm in your little space right here, and I'll erase this so this won't interfere with yours. But I have this example here, which is, pretty close to the one that is in the examples. In the examples that you see on that PDF, though, the page numbers are different. So before I make this live, I need to go see what page this is on in this document. But just know that when I did those examples, I have the paperback for this book, and I've been doing this play for a number of years. So I have, all the different paperback versions of it. They're the same, but just different pagination, different covers. But this is the one we're using for this class, and you don't have to buy that. Just so you know, you can print out or download the file for this from inside here, but I also have a plain copy of the PDF out in the course as well, so you don't have to fiddle with that in here if you don't want to. And then you just post to that. This is where you add the tags. So if I were Teresa and I'm adding a tag in here, then I'm going to put on my first read through, I'm going to put IA, and I like to put descriptive phrases next to my tags so that later when I'm looking for something, I can find them and I kind of know what it's about. And so I would put I already had one here. I'm just going to use this one. It's a descriptive tag, and this is also layer 1. I have this in the instructions to also tag by layer because I used to have one copy of the play, and each week we would come in on a different layer on top of the other ones and so on. I'm splitting it out to make it easier though, to avoid confusion, and so it's less important that you do that, but technically it is on the instructions, so this is what it would look like. A couple of other suggestions though before I maybe close this out is that there may be times for your own benefit where you want to make something bold so that it shows up kind of more distinctly, like maybe you have part of something bold and everything else is regular. Then you just do that, and you won't see the bold until you click post, and then there you go, it is in bold. So sometimes that can be good if you really wanted to emphasize something for yourself, or you're going to label something. I often have labels in my annotations, and I will put bold on those. But that's basically it. It's super easy to use, and I really like it because if you just printed this out and were to annotate it by yourself, you'd probably have to have a notebook out to the side because it's very tight, the space here, and you don't really have a lot of room. But here you can kind of expand this to as long as it needs to be. And notice when you've got a longer post, it kind of collapses, and so you can click on more so that you can see the whole thing, and then less. This isn't really a long post, but it just looks longer because it's got the big image in that. So this is what we're aiming for here. And if we go back to the instructions here, on this initial one, you need at least 30 quality annotations, right? I don't like putting a number on these things, but if I don't, some people will have 5, some people will have 60, and it's just like we need to have like a ballpark number. So figure, roughly, but don't force yourself into this box. You should be annotating throughout the whole place. So don't cluster your annotations like all on the first 5 pages, the last 5, etc. You want to process things where it makes sense to do so. So on average, aim for at least 2 to 3 annotations per page, but don't force that. You may have more annotations on some pages, fewer on others. Some students on this first read through, again, it's really a double read through. So figure, I don't know how many initial annotations, so that 30 means for all the tag types. So by the time we're all said and done, I should see some of all of these tag types. For the first read through, they're all going to be just your initial annotations because you don't know what you think. You're just trying to work through, various things. And then for the rest, you are, you're doing things like this: AE guilty, AE innocent, and so you should have some of those. I do highly recommend that you have descriptive phrases in there. I don't have them for all of these, but it's really good practice because then that way you don't have to go through and reread all of your annotations to find the 1 or 2 that you need later when you're, looking for something specific when you're writing your paper. Okay, so also one other thing, when you are done with the hypothesis assignment, when you click back in, it's going to create the impression that you haven't, there's nothing, you don't have to click a submit button or anything. There's nothing in here, so you just, you post your annotations and you won't see anything until I go back in and grade it. I have to go in and grade, here once they're done. So it's going to seem like, so I'm saying this to avoid any panic or anything or any question about like, oh, where do I submit it? You don't. Once you make the posts there, I can see them on my end, provided that you are posting to your name and not to the only me area. So just make sure, you post to your name and then it shows up here where I can see it, but it won't show as completed until I actually grade it. So you'll just have to bear with me until I get those graded. These are due on Friday, by the way. This gives you time to read it through once and do your initial annotations and then go back through and develop your other annotations for the other tag types. So that's it. That's a wrap, and I will close this out and get it out so that everybody knows how to complete this first assignment. Y'all have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon.